As there's a drive in a deep left field by Castellanos, it will be.
Oh man, it's 8 o'clock.
And so that'll make it a.
I don't need the spotlight. I shine just fine.
Hi, I'm Karma, and yes, I am a bitch.
Brav Bros. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Brav Bros, your favorite podcast from the bros for everybody. For whoever wants to listen, I am your co-host, Steele Russell, joined as always by the one and only MC Goots. What's up, dude?
Yeah, you can catch me MCing at the vote rally tonight in Philadelphia. I'll be there with my friends Lady Gaga and DJ Jazzy Jeff.
I love that DJ Jazzy Jeff's making an appearance. That's awesome.
Yeah, freeway too. It's gonna be great.
Your MC, that would be fucking hilarious. When I'm watching on TV and it's like, and introducing MC Goots, and you walk up there.
That would be incredible.
I know him.
I know him. He's interesting. What's he doing there?
But we're here to talk a little OC, and I never expected to proclaim arguably a perfect season. Sure, there were ups and downs. There were some flaws here and there. They went a little too low sometimes with some very sensitive subjects. But as far as 17 episodes that were entertaining, did not drag, they changed it up. Everybody showed up with their lunch pail. Yes, I'm back to that. Mm-hmm. This was a 17-0 season. I didn't see it coming, especially based on last year and our reactions to OC's season last season. They were flawless in so many ways. And obviously there's some villains. You can point to Alexis that we do not need to come back, but you can't argue what she brought to the show this season was palpable. You can point to Tamra being so much of a fucking disaster that she shouldn't come back. But again, argue all you want. The proof's in the numbies. You look at the numbies, the show performed very well, and this was a solid fucking season.
I thought you were going to say the proof's in the pudding. I was like, no
way.
I
certainly wasn't
really doing that.
I was about to, and then I was like, I'm not going to quote Tamra and Alexis. I can't do it. So I pivoted. But in my head, I was about to say pudding, and I'm like, I'm not giving them credit for that.
Well, the good thing is, if you did say the proof was in the pudding, I don't anticipate that you would continue to say it 3 more times to really hammer it home and scream,
pudding.
Put your hands up. Yeah, pudding. You guys know. God, no, you're so right. It is honestly, and look, obviously there's things that you can complain about. There's things that a lot of people don't like, i.e. Tamra, i.e. pointing to maybe Katie in the beginning of the season for a newcomer going on strongly, bringing up something that we were already tired about with Heather. But she completely came around. She is now, I would imagine, coming back for sure next year.
Oh, yeah, with that finale against Heather, for sure.
Yeah, I think that she held her ground really well, and she learned a lot throughout the season. The main thing is they kept us engaged every episode. Like you said, yes, there were some sensitive topics. Yes, there were some hits below the belt that we didn't really care for, but it kept us engaged the entire time. It gave us a lot to talk about, not just you and I with the podcast, but the fans online being engaged and having discourse. And that's what you want from a show, especially if it's 17 episodes long. And one thing that happened this episode that I didn't really anticipate, I thought we were going to get a lot more from the camera pickup. We just got like little bits and pieces. They didn't do a whole lot, and they could have done way too much, and it would have been, a little much going on there without having a whole lot of information at the time. They didn't do that. They just showed us people picking up the pieces, and I think it was really well done. To end like this and then go into what we imagine is a 3-part reunion, I'm excited.
I am too, because what it does is alleviate the stress of it needing to be a banger at the end to make up for a lackluster season, because we have that a lot where it's like, all right, this show's success is going to hinge on how this reunion goes. We don't have that this time. So now if we get to that second reunion episode, which tends to be the slow one that doesn't really land, I'm okay. I won't be up in arms, because I'm like, you know what? They delivered 17 out of 17 episodes. I'm sure the first part of the reunion is going to be great. I would imagine the second part, they have enough, right? They have enough with each individual housewife and enough feuds in between them to have each episode be about its own thing, right? You could do Shannon versus Tamra right out of the gate. Then you could do Alexis versus Shannon on the second episode and drip in Katie and Heather somewhere in there. And then the third one, you can save Johnny J and Ryan. And like, or those are all interchangeable as to when you want to do that. But that's 3 solid episodes if you do this right with some filler in between, which would make for, if they can hammer out 3 solid reunion episodes after the season, this might be franchise of the year. And I think we're going to have to do like a little bro awards show at the end of the year where we're giving like different awards to people, because I just think it'll be funny and fun. And maybe we'll do it like live on here, so we actually have like live commenters, or maybe we'll do it on YouTube or something. I don't know, but that might be kind of fun. But yeah, I'm just impressed. I'm very impressed with this cast. They all understood the assignment and they all showed up to work, and they just did a great job. This is just a great season of TV, and I was engaged every week and excited every week to watch it.
No notes.
No notes. But speaking of notes, I have a lot of notes here on this episode. So why don't we jump in? And we start out with Emily and Gina and Jen and Shannon, and they're going axe throwing. And when you see that, the name of the place, how do you say that?
Whoop axe.
Whoop axe, not whoop axe. She's whooping it up. I know with Vicky.
I know what Shannon's doing. Yeah. We're gonna always whoop it up as much as we can. It doesn't really matter. But yes, it's definitely whoop axe.
Yeah, it's whoop axe. But they're reconvening after the London trip. We find out that Shannon did actually leave early. She didn't wait around for everybody, which I like that move. I think it sends a bigger message to be like, I've told you that I'm fucking done with this. Mm-hmm. You keep trying to bring me back in, Shannon. Tamra. I'm done. So by picking up and just bouncing, I really like that move. And she just says, I'm done with Tamra. Like, this is just too much. She's been digging for all this shit. She's digging for news on me now. She just needs to drop this whole thing. So I'm fucking fed up with it. And I like what Gina's response is, because there was that stuff. All right, the text does not land like Tamra thinks it does. It's not a smoking gun against Shannon, but it does point to Shannon having conversations about it, which is a little shady. And to Gina's credit, looking at this situation, she's like, all right, well, yeah, it wasn't great, but I see a Shannon that's working on herself. And you can't argue that she's not. She's trying to get better. I cannot say the same about Tamra. So when push comes to shove in this, I can forgive Shannon. Tamra, why would I forgive you?
I mean, that's a good point. Did you just leave that open-ended for me? What the hell was that?
I thought you were I was waiting for a pickup, and you didn't pick it up. I was like, all right. Sometimes my points are just too good that there is no response. I get it.
Like, what the I was following your hand motions going back and forth, and then you just stopped on me.
I kind of pointed at you with the last one, I thought.
Like, it was and left. Yeah.
Over to MC Goots.
Jesus. Anyway, no, I fully agree. I like that Gina's able to have that kind of perspective where she can obviously relate a little bit with what Shannon was going through. We saw the change happen throughout the year from all of the ladies pretty much across the cast, at least the ones that matter and actually have a good head on their shoulders. They started to understand what Shannon was going through and pulled back a little bit. You know what? Yeah. Let's see how she is. Let's give her a little bit of space to grow, to figure out where she's coming from. And we saw Shannon, at least the fans did, trying to get through everything, taking responsibility on things immediately, moving forward. And we obviously weren't privy to a conversation that Gina and Shannon had regarding digging up a little bit of information on Travis. Shannon obviously apologized right away. She took responsibility once again. She sat there and said, you know what? I don't really remember if I did that, but if I did that, I'm definitely sorry. Bit of a cop-out, but still taking responsibility. That's important. Tamra's never going to do that. And I think that Gina is one of the first to actually see that and say Tamra is living in this la-la land where she can pull up dirt on people to use later. And she pulls out the whole quote-unquote arsenal today, where she's just firing at will. I've got this on you. I've got this on you. You've done all of this. And we knew she was going to do that. That was going to happen the second that Shannon showed Jen that text message from Tamra about doing the background check on Ryan. We knew it was going to happen because that is Tamra's MO. We know that she has that information, but the difference here is, Tamra, this is a reality TV show. If you do a heartfelt apology, people do forgive you for the most part. Tamra never does that. So we're starting to see other people realize what Tamra is, what she does, and this is just going to continue. It's never going to change. So we need to see that moving forward for the reunion next season. We need to see Tamra on the defense, and they're not going to take some bullshit apology from her. She needs to change her act, or she's not going to be able to handle it. So it's going to be interesting to see that. But I do like that Gina has a little bit more perspective on it and is easily forgiving Shannon because she's working on herself. That's important.
Right. And I think another thing to point out is, this doesn't exonerate Shannon from not being the best all the time. Like, I think that people get confused because we get some backlash in the comments. It's like, well, Shannon this and Shannon that. It's like, we're not saying that she's perfect by any means.
Yeah.
We're just seeing what we're seeing this season and saying, objectively speaking, she's trying to make up for one of the biggest mistakes of her life. Does she still have shortcomings? Absolutely. We see it later when she's talking to Matt. That was a weird interaction that we're going to talk about. So yeah, she's not perfect. It's just, especially when you are highlighting how Tamra's moving versus how Shannon's moving, it's like, well, you can see the difference in these two and why one's getting grace and why the other will not receive grace, especially with the route that she decides to take this episode. And we'll get into that more later. But Jen shows up and she has a big ass ring. I mean, that thing is gaudy as hell, but she's engaged. I love that she drops in like, yeah, we went to the Bahamas right after you got back from London. It's like, this chick got kicked out of her house like a month ago, and now she's gallivanting around the world with this dude, not asking any questions.
Nope.
We get a lot more answers at the end of this episode, which I actually did like, but I love the theme. Tacky Bridesmaids is a great theme. And I was really looking forward to who was going to bring it. And I'll be honest, when we get there, I was a little underwhelmed. Yeah, yep. I didn't think people leaned into it enough. But Tamra extended an invite to Jen to have a meeting with her, like a sit down to clear the air. But this is one of Tamra's biggest flaws. If you want to do that, just go and apologize for your part in whatever. Tamra approaches it as, I've got information to vindicate me because it's going to show you that Shannon is the one trying to drive a wedge between the two of us, which is the most bizarre stance ever. That we've watched her operate the way that she has all season, with no regard to Jen, with no regard to Ryan, with Jen's family, the implications that she's putting out there and how that'd be damaging. The party at Ryan and Jen's when she goes off the rails and calls him a little bitch the entire time, talks about the FBI, drunkenly falls as she's walking out to her Uber, still spewing hatred. That's not Shannon driving a wedge. That's you being a mess and not being able to cover up your own behavior and getting called out on it. And somebody that has been close enough to you for a long period of time that has seen through the bullshit. Finally, we were so confused when this season kicked off and Jen's like, me and Tamra are cool again. It's like, why? And then for the last time, Tamra crossed her. And we finally see Jen not only stand up to Tamra, but kind of come into her own in this moment and really take over as a central part of this show and a central part of Bravo as a whole. Like, we have seen the birth of one of the best housewives on TV right now. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. And that has been a caveat from Tamra being as miserable as she's been. But to look at this whole friendship, this whole relationship, and how you've treated Jen for 2 seasons now, how you've treated the guy that she's with, and whether you agree with what he's doing or not is irrelevant. Your treatment of her in regards to him has been reprehensible. And you think that that's Shannon driving a wedge, you delusional idiot? That's you driving a wedge because you can't help yourself because you're just a miserable person.
It doesn't even really matter at the end of the day because, yes, of course she's going to do this. Yes, it is fucking delusional to say that Shannon is the one driving a wedge between you and not taking any responsibility once again for what you did last season, for what you did most of this season. Like, you have done some crazy shit to Jen. Jen finally has hit her breaking point and says, why would I do this anymore? We can all see it. It's very black and white. You're not friends. Friends don't treat each other that way. Jen grew up, got away from you, and she's probably going to be better for it. Now, yes, she has some shit to deal with Ryan, but that has nothing to do with Tamra. And Tamra is going to talk shit regardless. So you just need to move on and you need to cut that toxic behavior out and get rid of Tamra. This says so much about Tamra as a person. Oh, yeah. Rather than trying to mend her relationship with her friends, she always just looks for someone else to blame.
Who can I throw under the bus?
You are part of this. You do not get to sit there and say it was actually all Shannon, unless for some weird reason your claim was that Shannon doctored a screenshot or something, and you had no part in that. You have told us that you had some part in that, and you're still not apologizing for it. You're not trying to mend your relationship with Jen. You're just trying to pass the buck over to Shannon. And that's what she always does. She never tries to mend a friendship. She just tries to sit and grab somebody else and throw them in the way. And then maybe she can live to fight another day a little bit more. That's all she's ever going to do. She doesn't care about her friendships. She just sees them as pawns in her game show. And she just wants to continue to live that life. And if you want to continue to live that life, you're not going to have any friends anymore. So,
Yeah, no, that's well said. And the more I think about it, like with evidence and people finding text messages from years ago, I would imagine that every housewife has to have like the highest gig iPhone available just to save all the text through the years. Cause like in our group chats and shit, like the dad's chat, it's like 20 gigs of data, like just for one chat. So for them to have all these texts from so long ago, they have to have these like massive memory phones. That's where my phone, that's where my phone goes.
It's either that or how like, you'll wake up one morning on Tuesday morning in the middle of the month and it'll say that you paid for like 2 or 3 gigs of storage on the cloud and it was like $2.99.
And it's
like,
full.
oh yeah, forgot about that. Yeah, and it's full. They probably wake up to like a $40 charge from Apple for cloud storage. That's probably not only that, but also who was it that had all those selfies? Was it Lisa Barlow that had like selfies?
No,
I think it was Lisa.
Was it Lisa? I thought it was somebody else, but yeah, it was like an outrageous. It was like 10,000 or something ridiculous.
Yeah. So between the pictures of yourselves and all of the text messages that you need, especially on that show with Salt Lake, they need as much storage as possible because
they're paying $50 a month for 2 terabytes of data.
Yeah.
But anywho, Jen's not up for it. We started this whole conversation because of this meeting that Tamra wanted to have. Jen has reached the point where she's like, no, like, I don't need to, even if you have evidence against Shannon, like, I know my relationship with Shannon. I know my relationship with you. I don't need to do this. Like, it's too soon or just never again, pretty much. But when I tell you, I was upset, just upset at this next scene immediately because there's a knock on the door and it opens up and there's Alexis. I'm like, oh no, she's back. Like, we've had a few weeks without any Alexis Bolino and they've been wonderful. And the minute she opens the door, I'm like, boo. And she walks in with Clorox wipes to clean up the shit they have to talk about. If you're going to make this joke, bring a roll of toilet paper to clean up this shit. All right. It's still dumb, but at least that lands better. Who's wiping up? Because in my head, immediately, I'm like, are you wiping your ass with Clorox wipes? Because that sounds painful and unhealthy. I don't think you should do that.
She thought this was going to hit so hard, too. The way that she was hiding it behind her, like, oh, I've got something for you. Here you go. And it's got a little bow on it. Like, dude, at least try. If you're going to do prop work, because Alexis is just like a failed stand-up comic.
This is the lowest level of humor at this point.
Your stand-up skit, awful. Nobody laughed at it. You're terrible. All right, I got to move on to different material.
Crowd work next.
Down here. Yeah, crowd work next. That didn't work because you're a raging lunatic and nobody knows what you're saying and you make 0 sense. All right, that didn't work. Let's move on to prop work. At least use a good prop if you're going to go for Carrot Top level. Maybe something would work. Like, it's just, she sucks. There's nothing more to say about this woman. She is awful. And I cannot wait for her to just go back away and have to worry about maybe a social media post here and there eventually when her and Johnny J break up. That's it. That's the only thing that we're going to see from her in the future.
Oh, get divorced, actually, not break up, because we get the ring shopping update and we know that they're engaged because they posted on social media and then turned off the comments, which is my favorite move.
Until they're married, I'm not buying it.
Yeah, that's a good point too. But we got a dumb confessional. Johnny J's back on our screens. I don't know why they're giving this dude the time of day. I'm pretty sure it's
Shannon's ex-boyfriend, not Alexis's current boyfriend.
Dude, they had some great captions today. And in Potomac as well, they had a really good caption for TJ. But John Jansen, and I've got one last rant saved up for this douchebag at the end of this one, but it's just funny to hear how he talks, because he's talking about Alexis, and I love Bravo for this, and maybe this is why they do this, just to show you who this guy is. Everything he's saying to Alexis, he has said almost verbatim to Shannon previously. It's like all this guy does is love bomb you because he thinks he can get something out of you. This was an advantageous relationship for this guy. And you don't see that, Alexis, because you are the exact same. If you go back to, like, she was on Below Deck with some dude, and it was the same kind of verbiage talking about their relationship. I'm head over heels. It was a lot of PDA. Anytime we've seen her with a dude, this is how she is. So no, nobody buys this shit, because both of you it's the same playbook, years apart with different people. So that's what makes this whole thing even more irritating to watch, because it's like, do you think that you're basically calling all of us dumb? Don't get me wrong. You and I are idiots. I'm okay with that. But I will not sit here and have Alexis Polino and John Jansen call me an idiot. You can call me an idiot. They can't call me an idiot. And I feel like they're calling me an idiot, and I won't stand for it.
I'm taking offense to that one. I don't
Yeah,
like
fuck
it at all.
you. But Alexis is the one putting on Jen's party. And as they're discussing it, this is where Tamra goes, thanks to Shannon, I'm in a bad place with Jen. I'm like, in what world? In what? I know we already talked about this, but how is this your stance? Like, who do you think is, I guess that's what I get so confused about watching this. Who do you think's believing you other than Ryan Stoneman? Shout out. I have to make a point to shout out Ryan every show.
OT episode.
One, because he's been a really good sport, and two, he appreciates it. So Ryan, you got this and 3 reunion episodes left. No, we're not talking about you anymore, but
Until next year.
until next season. But they talk about the background check again, and Tamara's like, I've never gotten a background check on anybody. It's like, I don't know if he went through with it or not. We don't have the evidence of the actual background check, but we do have the texts alluding to you doing it. So that's where I get confused, and that's where it's hard, because yeah, we don't have the definitive proof of here it is, but for her to definitively say I would never do this, it's like, well, then why does the text say it does? And then you put it on Shannon, and she's asking you a question. She's not saying, and the way that Tamra phrases it's important, because it's not what the text said. She phrases it as, can you get your friend to do this? And if you look at the text, it's not quite that where Shannon's saying, do this for me. It's more asking Tamra, are you going to do this? Because your friend can do this for us. So is Shannon clean in the whole thing? No, again, she was talking about it. It's messy, but she's taken ownership of it, as we saw with Gina. So she's no longer under the gun here. It's just you, Tamra, and you're just trying to point fingers, as we see all the time. It's nothing new. And of course, your newfound quote unquote friend, who also sued you for hundreds of thousands of dollars years ago, let's not forget, backs you up. And this is where we get the dumb line, the proof's in the pudding. We got all the proof. Where is it? Okay, at this point now, we've been hearing about this smoking gun for an entire fucking season, and in the off season, and on social media, and present day, we're getting tweets and Instagram posts and an alleged tell-all from Alexis where she's going on a live to tell you the truth. We haven't seen that yet. All we're getting is a bunch of claims with no actual proof. And I'll tell you what, I'm getting real sick and tired in this country of just people saying a bunch of shit they cannot back up.
Yeah, no, and honestly, as far as the Bravo totem pole goes for hearsay, these two are at the bottom of the list. And there are a lot of really good contenders. There are a lot of really good contenders on Bravo for hearsay.
That's an award at the end of the year. Hearsay award of the year.
Hearsay award. These two are so far below everybody else. I would not believe them at all. There's no reason to. You have the craziest, wildest claims. Alexis is still somehow below Tamra, because I know that Tamra has screenshots, because in the moment, even if she's talking to a quote unquote friend, I know that if there's anything incriminating there that she thinks maybe I could use this, I'm going to put it in my back pocket for later.
Screenshot.
She has a folder on her phone full of screenshots of people talking shit on other people that she can use whenever she wants. The bad part about that, Tamra, is that you're too stupid to use it in the right way. When you get confronted, when you start to spiral, you just start throwing shit out there. That's not how it's done. You would think, as calculated as you are for the most part, you might have some sort of contingency plan when things go to shit. And she just doesn't. She sits down with the worst person on the show in Alexis and finally feels safe and likes her scene together, because you guys get to just shoot the shit and talk shit on everybody else and talk about proof in the pudding. We don't see any proof. You showed one text about Shannon talking about Gina and Travis, and like you said, there's nothing really there. And Shannon took responsibility for that immediately. As soon as it came out, she just said, I don't really remember doing that. Maybe she didn't even do it. Maybe she just said, hey, yeah, can you find this out? Because I'm worried about Gina. And then once everything came out, she's like, okay, never mind. It seems like they're okay. Not a big deal. Tamra thinks that's a smoking gun. The real smoking gun is the screenshot that Shannon had where you said you were doing a background check on Ryan, but you're not taking responsibility for that. So when you say the proof is in the pudding here, there is proof against you and you're not denying it. you're denying that you ever did it, but you're not denying your involvement in it. And it's bizarre because she just looks like she's grasping for straws. And it is so sad to see, unless you're us, because we fucking love it. She looks
Yeah.
like such an absolute moron, and I could not be happier. I'm a little concerned about the reunion just based off of the clips that I've seen, because we did call that she was going to backtrack a lot. Maybe she's standing somewhat firm, but we'll see how that works out. I just like to see her scramble because it makes me happy, and that's what I want.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think we're still going to get back pedals. I
Yeah.
think there'll be moments of apologies. The usual, what we've seen is she apologizes. Sometimes the opposing team goes for it and then they make amends. I think the difference this season that's going to result in some of the clips we've seen from Tamra is her attempting to apologize and the person she's apologizing to being like, no, fuck that. I'm done with this shit. And then Tamra goes off. That's kind of what I'm assuming. I'm still on the backtrack train for now.
Yep.
I just don't know if it's going to be received how it's been received in the past because people are finally fed up. And I think that might lead to some blowups. I also think that the Heather Tamra team changes dynamics significantly, especially at the reunion, because she's going to lean on Heather and Heather's going to lean on her in turn. And I think that we haven't really seen that before. And I think that might cause her to be a little more confident going into this versus before, where she's like, shit, I need to clean up a lot of this mess. Now she's got some kind of support in Heather, which is still so strange. The Heather, talk about a just absolute brutal regression in these past 5-6 weeks. Like, talk about a massive fall from grace from somebody that you could say is very graceful in how she moves throughout these shows. How we've seen it in the past is not getting involved in certain things past a certain point to keep her side of the street at least maintainable, maybe not clean, but maintainable. She's completely thrown caution to the wind and joined Tamra's team. And we talked about it last week. The craziest part is the dynamic does not seem like Heather's in charge. It seems like she is subservient to Tamra, which I never saw coming. So it'll be an interesting reunion for sure. I think the bottom line of this scene, Alexis and Tamra, you have no pudding. Okay. The proof's in the pudding. You don't have any. You're out of pudding. All right. But anyway.
Well, with Heather specifically, though, and you would probably agree with this, did anybody have it easier on any show across the board than Heather?
No.
What does she do? She doesn't really do a whole lot. She's just Heather Dubrow. She just
But that's all she needed to be.
Exactly. All she ever had to do was just rise above things, not get down in the dirt, just have nice scenes with Terry, have a couple of funny one-liners, and you can move on and collect your paycheck. Why? I don't understand why she's doing this. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
About the Katie thing really struck a nerve. Something about that. I don't know if Tamra was in her ear. I don't know what. Something about that interaction specifically sent her down a different path, because the fact that she's still stuck on it is astounding to me. I don't know why this is such a sticking point 17 episodes in, and yet here we are still. That benign interaction early on just sent her down this weird war path, and I don't get it. I don't why she's so rattled, especially by a newbie.
The warpath would have been okay. I think she still could have weathered that storm, but once she aligned herself with Tamra, it doesn't matter what you do. Everybody's going to hate you. People on the show and people outside the show are going to hate you because of who you align yourself with. So she just chose so poorly with choosing Tamra as her friend and accomplice that nothing she did after that really made any sense, and everybody hated it. That's all that's going to happen.
Yep. But the next scene, we get like a check-in with the parents and like their daughters and stuff. And, it's nice to see. And I'll even give Tamra a shout out here because we were confused by bringing Sophia on. It appears that Sophia wants to be a part of the show to some degree. And you know what? If they have nice scenes, I don't wish bad relationships amongst parents and their children for anybody. So if they're reconnecting and things are good, they're fine. I'm okay with that. And everyone else, Heather and her son, we've always seen the Dubrows seem to have good relationships with their kids. Jen and her kids, Dawson is his name, right?
Yeah.
Is that right? And we saw their relationship throughout this season, and it seemed genuine when they were having that heart to heart about him moving in with their dad. So to see that, it's just nice. But it leads to the Kaylee thing, which is going to come into play later. But we know that she went to get her name changed to Matt's last name, and it was just a touching scene. He's like, "No, I can say that's my girl," and it was just nice. That was really nice. Yeah, but We get to Gina and Travis, and we haven't seen much of Travis this season. I didn't know where these two stood really, because this is such a bizarre scenario that we have going on. And the more that we were skeptical at first, the more that we're privy to the information, I get where she's coming from. It's still, I think at that point, it's like, who's to say what the right move is? She made a move to protect her peace and her kids, and I respect that. Travis, I like that he is open about, I don't like this. He goes, I'm doing what you want to do because I love you, but I'm not a fan of this. I don't think it's working. But here we are. So the fact that he is staying, I think speaks volumes. The fact that she is willing to have these conversations, they just seem like a real relationship. It's a weird relationship given the circumstances, but I do appreciate, I guess, the vulnerability of the whole thing and the fact that they are
Yeah.
able to communicate.
Yeah, and I do really think that the reason that he's away, not only from the show, but obviously from her, is all pretty much his ex. I mean, it's pretty plain to see. And I would say that Gina is one of the most realistic people on this show. She seems super down to earth with pretty much everything. So him coming back in here sort of just, shows us that they're working things out, which is great.
Yeah.
But him being on the show, I feel like, as much as the other husbands, probably could have caused a lot more harm than it would do good. So
Yeah,
it
that's
makes
fair.
sense for him to kind of stay away. And if if he's going to move out, I'm not saying that he moved out for the show, but if he's going to move out and he's going to stay away for a little while, that's probably best for them, at least
Yeah.
until a divorce gets finalized. Now, obviously, when we don't see things and we don't have answers to things, you tend to speculate a little bit. We don't speculate a whole lot here because we don't
try
want
not
it
to.
to go bad, but you do tend to speculate a little bit. I'm on the side of they just need all of this to blow over and then they'll be able to repair their family. I think that's where we're heading. It's nice to see a little check-in because it does genuinely seem like they do really care for each other. And the fact that he was able to move out and he did it because Gina wanted to, and he's still able to come back and stay with the kids, obviously, the entire time that she's in London, and he's building whatever he's building in there. I couldn't tell what he was building, some sort of table maybe. But he
Cabinet,
only had
maybe.
3 screws in. They only had 3 screws in. So
Not
who
even.
knows?
According to
It
him,
might
not
not
even.
be finished yet. It might
He's
honestly
working
not
on
be finished yet. But either way, nice little check-in. Kind of forgot about Travis for the most part, but
Yeah.
there he is.
Which is okay, by the way.
Yeah.
But we get to the tacky bridesmaid party, and Emily and Heather, I thought they nailed it. I think that Emily took the easy way out and just reusing a dress, but I thought it was funny, the scene with her and Seth where it's like this bouquet is like our marriage, it's lifeless.
Shane,
Shane, sorry. But like the bouquet thing, that was funny. Their relationship's weird, but it's funny to me.
It's
And they're
goofy. I like
self-aware.
it.
Yeah, it's goofy. I appreciate that. I thought Heather really did nail it. And I love that they take a shot at Alexis. It's like, if anyone could have nailed this, it's Alexis. And she's the most normal looking, which is an indictment, honestly.
Probably the opposite for her. Everything that she has is tacky, and then she found something that was kind of normal and thought that that was tacky. I think
That's
that's
a good
what
point.
happened.
That's
Yeah.
probably exactly what happened. Gina, I thought, crushed it. That was a weird looking dress. So that was good.
Mhm.
But Heather and Emily are talking. And this intro scene, this was frustrating. It took a long time for everyone just to
Yeah.
get to the fucking party. So I'm trying to take notes. I had to cross out
I
like
know.
15 different things. But they start talking because when Katie and Matt show up, they walked right by Heather with no intro, did not give her the
Mhm.
time of day, which why should you? At a certain point, regardless of whose team you're on here, if you're team Heather, fine. If you're team Katie, fine. At this point, that you don't have to be friends with everyone. You don't have to even be cordial. It's okay to just not speak. So I had no issue with this. And I love that Matt's like, that was some cold ass shit. I'm like, hell yeah, Matt. Like,
Yeah, I really like that. And again, they're fighting over the dumbest shit in the world. They're talking about what a couple of 9-year-olds talked about. And the best way to look at this is when Katie's talking about her 6-year-old son bringing it up. Kids just say the darndest things, don't they? That's all it is. They're fucking children.
Who
and if
knows?
they're doing something, who is just throwing something out there and saying, oh, yeah, she's mean, who cares? Who gives a shit? It just doesn't matter. It's not a storyline. It's a huge sticking point for Heather because she doesn't want anybody's kids thinking that she's mean, even though you are mean to their mom. And you probably have been really mean to Emily in the past. And that makes a lot of sense. That tracks for your character. Maybe just have a little bit of self-awareness. And if you were able to laugh it off, I do think that people would be okay with that. If you just laugh it off, people would look at it and be like, all right, you're aligning yourself with Tamra, which sucks, but you're able to laugh this off. It's not that big of a deal. The further that you talk about it, the more and more that you're actually upset about this, the weirder it is. It's
Well, the
just
messier it
not that
gets.
big. Yeah, it's just
Because
not that big of a deal.
I agree with you, but it just gets messier and messier because it's like, all right, well, now we're playing the hearsay game with children, 8-year-olds,
Yeah.
6-year-olds. Like,
Which, by the way,
that's-
they're above Tamra and Alexis on the totem pole.
oh,
Children.
100%. Absolutely. I believe what they say more than those two. But at the same time, it's like,
yeah,
we don't know exactly what was said. It could be lost in translation. They're children. Who the fuck knows? It's a weird battle to pick because the only person you're going to be able to kind of square up against is Kaylee, who is still, yeah, she's almost 20, so she's not a child, but she's somebody's child. And you're now you're running the risk of bashing Katie's 20-year-old daughter over what Emily's kids may or may not have said. And who knows how that conversation went between a babysitter and the kids at the house. Like, there's no telling unless you have a camera in the house, which they might. Like, roll the tape. I don't fucking know. But this seems like a lose-lose situation. Even if it comes out that Kaylee's not the one that said it. Now it points negatively at Emily's kids who are under the age of 10. So who gives a shit? It's one of those where it's like, yeah, like you said, kids say the darndest things. Like, fucking move on. Weird sticking point.
It's
very
so
strange
stupid.
sticking point.